Welcome to the EU news on September 23rd in 2021. And even if it's the EU, we start in New York and the USA today. Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and EU Council President Charles Michel called on Monday at the UN General Assembly in New York for more international engagement in the fight against climate change. The EU is firmly on the way to achieving the goals of the Paris Agreement. If our partners follow our lead, the world will be able to keep warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. COP26 will be a moment of truth for all of us, said von der Leyen on Twitter. Climate finance needs to be increased by at least $100 billion to help the most vulnerable countries cope with climate change. Team Europe contributes more than $25 billion a year. There is more to come. All major economies must now increase their contribution, she said. For the 76th General Assembly of the United Nations, the EU will focus on key priorities: recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic, making the world safer and promoting peace, security and human rights, the race against climate change and shaping the world global digital agenda. Details of the EU's priorities can be found on their homepages if you want to go to more depth. Collectively, the EU and its member states are the largest donors to the United Nations institutions and provide almost a quarter of their regular budget. In order to be able to react to global crises, threats and challenges, the international community needs an efficient multilateral system based on universal rules and values. The United Nations remains at the center of this system. The EU works every day with partner countries, regional organizations and the United Nations to find common solutions to challenges that no country can tackle alone, such as health, climate change, biodiversity loss, sustainable development and the erosion of human rights. The EU provides extensive political, diplomatic and financial support in this regard. And now we have to go to their seat to Brussels in Belgium. The Erasmus Plus app, launched on Tuesday with an integrated European student ID, will enable access to a wide range of services such as paying in the cafeteria, borrowing from university libraries, or the digital transfer of academic achievements within Europe. Via the new Erasmus Plus app, which is available in all EU languages, students receive the digital European student ID, which is valid throughout the European Union. I am pleased that the interface of our successful and well-known program for young people, Erasmus Plus, is becoming more and more appropriate for the target group. More digital, more mobile, and more community-oriented. The new app and its integrated student idea clearly illustrate the European educational area that we stand for, said Commission Vice President Margaritis Skinas. And now let's go to Berlin in Germany. The Trade and Cooperation Agreement, the TCA, between the EU and the United Kingdom has been in force since the beginning of 2021. The country no longer belongs to the EU Customs Union and the bureaucratic hurdles for trade have increased significantly. Kevin Richardson, chief executive at the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport in the United Kingdom, pointed out the problems that arise from this, especially for small and medium-sized companies at the last event of the Air Cargo Club Germany. CILT represents the interests of the transport and logistics industry in Great Britain and advocated the needs of the sector during the Brexit negotiations and beyond. While the European and international air freight business is experiencing a real boom during the pandemic, British companies are faced with the challenge of coping with the increased administrative burden on imports and exports. Kevin Richardson, chief executive of CILT UK, pointed out the problems caused by Brexit at Air Cargo Club Deutschland. The immediate effects of Brexit were less than expected, as many importers brought their purchases forward to the end of 2020, and thus the stocks as a buffer have been there. Nevertheless, the Trade and Cooperation Agreement has not removed significant regulatory, logistical, and administrative barriers to trade, and thus falls far short of the goal of ensuring smooth trade, he says. Many small and medium-sized companies in particular have problems complying with the new customs regulations, only new to the UK, not new in general, such as health certificates in the food sector. The British plans to deviate from EU rules and standards, for example in data protection, food or chemicals, are increasing the uncertainty for German companies in the UK business. According to the Federal Statistical Office, the movement of goods between Germany and Great Britain fell by 2.3% to a value of 48.3 billion euros in the first half of 2021. This means that the United Kingdom only ranks 11th among the most important German trading partners. Before the Brexit decision in 2016, the UK was still the 5th most important trading partner for Germany. But the British transport and logistics industry is not only struggling with the new regulations. There is also a shortage of truck drivers due to a number of factors, including COVID-19, tax changes, and of course Brexit. The UK is missing around 100,000 drivers, including around 12,500 from the EU who left during the pandemic because the UK government did not qualify them as skilled workers and therefore do not qualify for a visa now. The interruption of the international supply chains due to the pandemic and the product availability due to production capacities, as well as the changes within the framework of the TCA, lead to considerable supply bottlenecks. The government must do its part to maintain supply chains. We are determined to work with the UK government, partnership and industry to address the challenges as quickly as possible. Supply chains are complex international networks and everyone involved has to make sure that trade works as smoothly as possible, said Richardson. Most recently, the British government postponed the introduction of border checks for goods imports from the EU to the coming year. According to the government, this step was necessary so that companies can recover from the pandemic and do not exacerbate supply chain problems. While the British are gradually introducing border formalities, the EU has been carrying out checks since January 1st, 2021. Some business associations in the UK are therefore complaining that the postponement of British checks is extending competitive advantages for EU companies. And now let's go to Barcelona in Spain. On Tuesday, the EU Commission delivered the 200th disinfection robot to the Consorcio Corporació Sanitaria Parc Taulí, that's a hospital in Barcelona. In addition to these first 200 devices, the EU Commission has now secured the purchase of a further 100 robots. The robots help disinfect COVID-19 patient rooms with ultraviolet light in just 15 minutes, thus helping to prevent and contain the spread of the coronavirus. Executive Vice President for Europe for the Digital Age, Margarete Vestager, said, "Helping member states face the challenges of the pandemic remains an important priority, and these donations, a very concrete form of support, are an excellent example of what can be achieved." 25 disinfection robots have been in use every day in Spain since February. Almost every EU member state has now received at least one. The purchase was made possible through the emergency aid instrument, and the equipment will be supplied by the Danish company UVD Roboter, which won a tender for emergency purchases. And now, it's not the EU, but let's still go to Edinburgh in Scotland. The French specialist for floating platforms for the use of offshore wind energy, BW Ideol, has reached an agreement with the Scottish Port Authority Ardèche. This guarantees BW Ideol exclusive and long-term access to the Scottish port of Ardèche for the production of concrete floating bodies. Both parties want to examine the series production for the delivery of on-site manufactured substructures for floating wind turbines, so offshore floating, on the basis of the damping pool technology from BW Ideol. The Ardèche port site in the far north of Scotland has been identified as one of 3 sites on the east coast of the UK that are suitable in size, scope, shape and location for an offshore renewable energy port. By signing this partnership, the company has secured unique access to a strategic asset. That's at least what the company announced. The dredging work is scheduled to start in October 2021, and the facility should be completed by August 2022. Paul de la Guérivière, the CEO of BW Ideol, said, "The Scottish government has encouraged the development of a large floating wind industry in Scotland through the Scotland leasing and the initiation of a consulting for a new sectoral marine plan for offshore wind power for innovation and targeted decarbonization of oil and gas," and they launched that actively. This project pipeline represents a unique opportunity to create your own supply chain in Scotland. And now, from Scotland, let's go to Bern in Switzerland. The Vice President of the European Commission, Maroš Šefčovič, takes over the Switzerland dossier. The Slovak announced this on Tuesday in Brussels after a meeting of the European ministers, and the EU Commission Ursula von der Leyen asked him to do so, as we heard. In the future, Šefčovič will therefore be the contact person for the Swiss Foreign Minister Ignacio Cassis. Up until now, the EU Commissioner Johannes Hahn, who came from Austria, had been in charge of the Switzerland dossier. At the meeting of the European ministers, the EU Commission informed Austria about the latest developments in the relationship between Switzerland and the EU. According to an EU diplomat, Brussels identified Switzerland's contribution to cohesion as the main point that must be clarified before anything goes any further. And now, one more time, we have to go to Berlin in Germany. German universities and colleges do well in terms of international orientation and research. This is shown by the comparison published on Tuesday with the global U Multi-Rank data. U Multi-Rank 2021 presents data for 100 German universities, including both universities and technical colleges. According to this, 15 German universities and colleges achieved values in the top group, that means A scores, in the more than 10 indicators, including 2 universities of applied sciences. And that's nice to hear for someone who's sitting and filming right here in Germany. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.